So, Dave, when did your family move to Point Claire?
April 1954.
Coming from?
Sananda, Bellevue. I think my parents wanted a house, wanted their own home. This was a first-time house for them. We moved from a big apartment to a house.
And what was the landscape like?
The houses at the end of Belmont, they weren't there. The Ash Grove apartments, they weren't there. None of that stuff was here.
Growing up, what would be an average day for you?
An average day. Well, get up in the morning, deliver the Gazettes, fool around with the buddies, take your bike and go for a ride somewhere, do whatever. We'd have fun playing with the other kids from Vawa. Come home around 3 o'clock, deliver the Montreal Star. Yeah, to the same people that you delivered the Gazette to in the morning. The News and Chronicle was the Lakeshore News. I delivered that too, once a week, Thursdays. It was 7 cents a paper. So go knock on somebody's door at the end of the month, you owe me for 4 weeks, 28 cents. You get 30 cents. Wow. The next month is 5 weeks, 35 cents. A lot of times it was a straight 35 cents. You got 1 penny for every paper that you delivered. 1 cent. You didn't become a millionaire overnight. Our playground was terracotta. In those days, the brickyards was still here. The Y used to have skiing up there, ski lessons. Crazy, but they had ski lessons. The shopping center opened in 58. And I can remember us walking down to the shopping center. My mother didn't like it because you had to go by the terracotta brickyards. And that was a sight. People lived in there. Literally lived in there. The miners, they lived with their families in there. And because it was clay, it was the filthiest buildings around. The dirt, the dust, and everything. And the railway had a rail spur that they used to push cars in there and load them up with brick and then bring them out.
They lived in there?
They lived in terracotta.
What, I don't understand.
Well, I've got to find old pictures, but there was apartment buildings in there for the guys that brought their families out there.
What do you mean apartment buildings? Like
It was like an apartment building. I can remember seeing it, yeah.
And did you ever move out or come back or?
I had 1 year after high school in Dorval, spent 5 years in Pierrefonds, and because we were spending 8 nights a week in Point Claire, I went on a business trip. I was expected home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I got home at midnight, and my wife had already put in a bid on this house. So we've been here since 1980.
Were your parents still in the house that you grew up in?
Parents were still living on the other street. In the winter, I can look into my old bedroom window. When I was in Scouts, we used to weekend camp in Point Claire. You'd take your backpack and your sleeping bag and tents and everything else. We'd walk to what is Broadview and St. Louis. Broadview went up to Brador. And Brador was the end of the line. There was nothing else, nothing. It was open fields and woods, nothing up there. Well, we would trek through this, and we eventually figured it out, that we camped for the weekends, periodic weekends, what is now the Trans-Canada Highway. We'd set up a camp, blow up cans of beans, and forget to poke a hole in the lid, they explode. Oh, that's neat, that's fun.
Well, you don't have any supper then?
Well, that's how stupid these kids were. If you didn't know what to do, you learned pretty quick. The next week when we did it, you poked a hole. Go without supper that night, you know. But you learned real quick.